Hola. Unfortunately, that's one of the few words I know in Spanish. So I'm going to try and make this as entertaining as I can, use as many visuals as I can, and pace through it pretty quick. I'm not exactly sure what she said about me, so I will tell you that I'm the owner of the largest advertising agency in the United States that specializes in travel. But today is not about me. What I'm going to talk about is branding and technology. Anybody remember these? You guys look a lot younger than I am. But in the 60s, Kodak developed this little thing. Yes, see? See, that's my second word. I knew that one. Uh, Kodak designed this, and they called it the wheel. And you know what? It didn't really catch on in the beginning. People didn't really get it. And then they went to an advertising agency who rebranded it, and they called it the carousel. Goes round and round, shares memories. And ironically, what I think is interesting is that we can all remember sharing those memories with our families and friends, clicking through, clicking through, clicking through. Human nature, you want to share those adventures. But now we can do it on pads, and we can do it faster. Now we can do it on phones and do it more effective. You and I have the best job in the world. Why? Because we sell the dream. Everywhere around the world, someone's in an office and they're dreaming or hoping they were at some other place. As travel marketers, our job is to change those dreamers into doers. We've got to quit thinking like a marketer and start thinking as a traveler. The job, quite simply, is to get them from point A to point B, their home, to a destination without getting lost along the way. Sounds pretty simple, but it gets complicated because most destinations have stakeholders. They have other constituents that are vying for the attention of that same customer. They might be a restaurant, they might be an airline, they may be an entertainment venue, but everybody wants their message in your ad. And I think one of the biggest mistakes advertisers make is that they worry too much about that sort of thing. And instead of thinking through as the traveler, they're thinking, well, I've got to make sure I please that person because, you know, he's a stakeholder. I've got to make sure I have the airline in there. By the end of the day, they've got so much junk in the ads, the traveler doesn't even look at it. So let's talk real quick about the travel process. You know, it begins with the traveler being inspired to travel. That's the easy part. Everybody wants to travel, right? Then they start considering their options. They research those options in terms of pricing and inherent benefit. They purchase their trip, and then they actually take the trip. And then after the trip, of course, they share those memories with their friends and their family. And there are all kinds of things that influence that travel companion. But it really starts with a brand. What makes a good brand? It's a relationship. It's personal. It has to be nurtured. You can't take it for granted. It's about me, the traveler, not you, the destination or brand. It's important to remember. Lots of times, you know, you see guys like this, you know, they're talking about themselves and they're bragging and they're trying to tell them everything and anything they can about how much better they are than somebody else. Instead of simply seeing the prospect and how to interact with her. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that destination. If the traveler cannot picture themselves in your destination or in your hotel resort or in your restaurant, they're never going to come. A brand is personal. You know, if you ask a lot of people what Harley Davidson sells, they'll tell you a motorcycle. But if you ask Harley riders, they'll tell you freedom. It's about the experience. It's not about the machine. It's about the whole. It's not about the drill. Heck, this guy even branded himself. I mean, as a brand marketer, it doesn't get any better than that. But this is one of my favorite examples. This is a professional basketball player who's branded himself with Nike. But unfortunately, he has to play in Reebok shoes. So that's a brand that's gone astray. A brand has to differentiate itself from its competitors. We have a client, we're the agency of record for the island of Barbados. And you know, Barbados has beautiful beaches, lots of sun, sand, beautiful people. And before us, that's essentially what they put in all of their ads. It was all talking about beach, it was all talking about the ocean, it was all talking about the sun. Unfortunately, the same can be said of Jamaica, the Bahamas, St. Lucia, who the last time I checked have the same water, also have sand, and guess what? They have sun. But the similarities don't end there. You've seen some of these ads, and you know, they start to all look the same, you know, holding hands on the beach, kissing. This is one of my personal favorites, and these are different destinations flowing through the water. She's sweeping the water with her hands, walking out to the ocean. How many times have we seen ads like this? You know, a woman with a shopping bag in a quaint town, couples eating, or maybe people laughing and pointing at something. You know, by trying to say everything in the ad, I think what happens, we end up saying nothing at all, falling into the sea of sameness. For Barbados, what we did, we created a positioning called Long Live Life. And the reason we did that was because Barbadians, at least when we did the stakeholder interviews, they seemed to think they've learned how to live life better than any other country in the world. So as they say in Barbados, life didn't start in Barbados, it was just perfected there. Now it's Barbados' responsibility to tell the rest of the world how to live their life. First thing we did was create a website. And with new technology, you can actually, obviously, embed a whole lot more videos than you could before. So we created what we call life lessons. On their homepage, there's actually 7 of them. We've created 15 in total, and I'm going to show you one. We thought it was more effective to actually have Barbadians tell the story about their island than our telling it with words and with pictures. So this one is actually called Woken Up. Except we don't have any sound.
Yeah. So in case you were asking me to try it.
It has nothing to do with the rest of your body. It has to do with your waistline and hip area.
Walking up is Barbadian way of gyration.
It's a movement from the hips down. Yeah, it's a very Barbadian thing.
Some people may argue that the red plastic bag doesn't really work up.
But I could show you if I had a couple more drinks in me.
How you walk up? I can't describe it, I'm gonna show you.
So slow is like this. And we go all the way around, come around to the front, and you go all the way around.
It is natural to the Barbadian and to the West Indian, so when you see it, they didn't rehearse it a lot. It's quite natural to them.
And then we take it a little faster, which would be a medium tempo, so you take it like this. So that's a little faster.
The more you work up for a man, that's many more years added to your relationship.
And then when you want to go really, really fast, you go really fast and really fast. It's like this.
Moving the pelvis. From round and round and round and round. The most women do that, and they've got some men also doing that. They could do it well. Some of the men could do it real well. But me, I can't get that do now.
Now you may see it. That was enough. You don't need to see anymore.
We Bajans, Barbadians, have perfected the art of that movementation, oscillation, gyration. Yes.
Well, it's very African. It's beautiful. I love it.
So the website has all kinds of videos like that. Every life lesson talks a little bit about something else. I'm going to share one other later in the presentation, but right now I want to talk about our media addiction. You know, I mentioned this is the travel process. There's all kinds of things that influence that. Certainly traditional media, the advent of digital media, search certainly makes a difference. We've got, and I combine public relations and social media. We've got mobile, and we've got out of home. And what I'm going to do today is share with you quickly different examples of utilizing those different marketing disciplines to affect the travel process. You know, having the internet, I think a lot of people thought that we would watch less TV and maybe even listen to less radio. But the fact of the matter is we're doing it 20% more. You know, this was an interesting survey. Deloitte found that 3/4 of the customers are actually multitasking while watching television. 42% are online, 29% are on mobile devices, 26% are sending instant messages. It's just overload. And it's not going to get any easier. I think, in fact, it's probably going to get worse. I think we've got our first question here, which is coming from up there. We think. There it is.
¿Cuántas horas de TV en promedio semanal mira un estadounidense? 10 horas, 30 minutos. 2, 23 horas, 41 minutos. 3, 34 horas, 39 minutos. 4, 39 horas, 14 minutos. Comenzó la votación. Fin de la votación.
34 hours. You know, I did the math. If you live in the United States and you live to be 65 years old, you're going to be have watched TV for 9 years. I mean, that's a pretty amazing statistic. And again, there's no reason to believe it's going to go down. I think now we're going to go with my next slide, which is here, but it's not up there. There we go. All right, how do we make media decisions to reach our customers? In the old days, you know, we guessed. I mean, let's be frank. We would come up with stuff, we'd paint it in broad strokes. We said, well, adults between this age and that age, maybe people that make over $75,000. You know, guys are more apt to drive back then. And so if we want to reach a guy, we're going to be on drive time, or maybe in the sports page, women back then maybe tend to watch more daytime TV. I mean, we were guessing. And we thought it was pretty sophisticated stuff at the time. But today, you know how we do it? We wait until you tell us. You know, new media has changed everything in terms of the technologies. It's a case where I think many of you know that as you go to this website, to that website, Big Brother's following you, and they're placing you in these behavioral buckets. But now they actually overlay that with third-party data, and they can hone in on it even more. As a company, we subscribe to about $250,000 a year in just research. And it's pretty scary what some of that stuff can tell you. One of them is a company called Media Mark Research, MMR, or MMI rather. And you know, I could, if you told me what you had, what cereal you had for breakfast this morning, within a high certainty, I could tell you essentially how much money you make, you know, what TV shows you watch, what websites you might go to. I mean, it's amazing what this research can tell you. It's not perfect, but it's a whole lot better than the way it was. And things have changed even in terms of measurement. In the old days, and I've had my agency for 30 years, a client would ask you, well, tell me how well my advertising's doing. And you'd say, you know, it's doing really well, and you'd order them another cocktail. Today, that's different. Now you can go online and you can tell the client exactly how much they spent for a search term and exactly how much money they made on that transaction. I mean, it's unbelievable the difference that it's made. It's not advancing. Hang on. There we go. So what do online marketers know about you? They know a lot. You know, it's almost scary again in terms of what they can do and how they can target you utilizing different networks. Certainly contextually, psychographic, demographic, which has been around for a while, geographic, behavioral, which is by far the largest now, and retargeting. You know, let me give you a quick example of behavioral targeting. Let's say you were looking for a watch, and so you went on a website. In this case, it's Timex. And then the very next day, you went on Amazon to see maybe what that watch costs, or maybe see something else. You know, it's no accident that all of a sudden there's a Timex ad, you know, in that experience. And maybe you've seen that. If it's happening more and more lately. If you're always on a certain kind of website and you moved somewhere else and somebody is trying to sell an ad, they'll find you. In terms of the travel process, in terms of traditional media, you know, this is a term that we always coin. You know, television didn't kill radio, and online is not going to kill offline, not anytime soon. You know, in terms of ad impact by medium and age, it tells you some pretty surprising things. Television is still by far has the largest impact on a buying decision. You know, overall, if you look at all of those ages, it's about 83%. Magazine is next at 50. Online is at 47. Newspaper 44. Radio 32, and out of home 13. So traditional media certainly still has a place. 70% of Americans at least say or state that they enjoy reading printed magazines even though they could get the same information online. In 2010, the world's top OTAs, or online travel marketers, Expedia, Orbitz, and Travelocity, spent $100 million. These are online travel marketers. And where'd they spend it? They spent it offline. You know, they're not stupid. Let's move on to digital. There's some fun things here. In terms of digital, Google, and this was a quote you've probably seen lately, online display advertising is big business and getting bigger all the time. But that said, the influence of banner advertising is actually declining. And I don't know that people really understand that. Does anybody here know the term banner blindness? Banner blindness is essentially, you know, publishers on these websites, they'll place the advertising usually at the top, right? Or on the side. You know, we're not stupid, you know, as users. We quit looking. So you have to get the attention of that user, because we're conditioned now more and more not to look to the right and not to look at the top. So let me show you an example of an online ad that we did for a destination, and it's actually for a race in a destination. It's a big car race in a place called the Pocono Mountains. So when I click this, you're going to see a Pocono Mountain logo on the right-hand side, and then you'll see what we did to try and solve that problem with banner blindness.